What is up guys, Vortex here, and today I'm going to be showcasing you my top 4 deck profile featuring DarkKnightmon. DarkKnightmon is the deck that I decided to take to the recent Living Armories event in Leeds, the 2K tournament, and it was kind of on a whim, but it ended up working out pretty well in my favour. There's going to be a timestamp to the deck list, but first of all I'm going to be just discussing my matchups because they're pretty diverse and I kind of want to give you an understanding of my matchups at the tournament. So it was 6 rounds of Swiss and then we got into a top 8 cut basically. My first round was against Jesmon. Basically what ended up happening is that I outsped the Jesmon and controlled the Jesmon player. A lot of the Bauhuckmon, I think the Bauhuckmons are 5 cost, so Digivolving the Saviour and then going into, you know, the Bauhuckmon basically removed his play, and one of the games that he played, he ended up bricking, no Solomon, so it actually ended up working out in my favour. Game 2 was against RizeGreymon. I thought I was going to have way more trouble with this deck. Obviously its main function is to delete, which obviously plays into my favour, but the control and the amount of tamers I felt like was going to be a big problem, and it was game 1. My opponent was able to pretty much out-control the control deck basically, so good on his part, but I took the next 2 games from basically him hard playing guys because he didn't have the tamers, so pretty good on my half there. My round 3 was against Minvervamon. Minvervamon was a very interesting matchup. I thought it was going to go a different way, but what ended up happening is that as my Dark Knight, I believe, is level 5 and the Minerva requirement is 4, I believe, I was able to basically force him to not really have answers for my board. He was also playing, I think it was like a mixture between Mastemon in the deck as well, so he was trying to control me with like Chaos Degradation and Flame Hell Scythes, but all my guys, my big guys, obviously Dark Knight, were 7k, so he was never able to completely delete them, so I ended up taking it pretty convincingly. My game 4 was against Security Control, and this was my only tie of the tournament. We went into time unfortunately, and we both just basically agreed to go for the draw because there's no way any of us could win in the third game essentially in time. So first game I basically out-tempoed him. I had a much bigger board and he can't deal with it, so that worked out for me. And then game 2 he controlled my board, was able to digivolve a lot of the stuff with DefXmon, and DefXmon against this deck is a punishment because all the stuff is level 4 and the only thing you have is level 5s essentially, so really sucked in that regard. And so yeah, I went to a tie, and then my I don't think it was my winning in, but pretty much my winning in was against Crossheart. I think Dark Knight is essentially the best deck against Crossheart. It essentially plays around the fact that X4 needs to go to 1 tamer, and on the following turn you can go into X antibody to delete that tamer, and then they don't have a follow-up essentially. And that's what ended up happening in game 1. Game 2 he rushed me down because I didn't find any of my pieces, and then game 3 he ended up misplaying, swinging into my DarkKnightmon, well, swinging into security. I blocked with my DarkKnightmon, and then he was at 1 memory, so I ended up using both analog boys or analog youths to gain the memory to go to my turn and then finish off the game there. So pretty good. Ended up going first in rounds, and then for top cut, my first match was against Armour. Armour was actually a pretty bad matchup for me because it essentially means that I can't get rid of the Magnarex. In my version of the build, I'm not playing any hard removal, so I can't really deal with Magnarex really. Maybe when I have the X antibody, but then I'm using that to swing, then it goes to security, so it's not really doing that much. But thankfully I ended up finding a lot of my Digivolve guys to essentially lower him down and then push him out of this game. I think at one point I had like 8 bodies in the field. And then my top 4 match ended up losing to Gaiomon. I think Gaiomon's a really bad matchup for this deck because essentially it de-digivolves on the Gaio obviously, and then it also gets to attack specific pieces, which is very unfortunate. And the biggest crux of the deck, Solomon. Solomon ended up making me lose the game, essentially having to play Dark Knights for full cost but with Digi-Cross requirements. So that's how I ended up losing my top 4. But enough of that, let's get straight into the deck profile. Alright, let's get straight into the deck profile. With the X, we only play the free Pagu. The reason why I only play the Pagu and not the 1k guy is because the search is very important in the deck, and also you don't really care about the 1k. Essentially you actually want your guys to die because it provides you with more resources, and so having additional DP reduces the chance of it dying. So we do not play the additional 1k guy, we just play the Pagus. And now we get onto the rookies. So with the rookies, we start with 4 Monitormon. The Monitormon is very important. It allows you to search 2 cards similar to stuff like Huckmon, but it's only the top 4, and you get to add Deadly Axe, Knight, or a card with Twilight. This essentially means you can also add the Tamer for the deck, but basically just means you can search all the cards, which is very important. Then we play 3 Toyagumon. The Toyagumon is just as important. Sometimes when you attack with your DarkKnightmon, it just doesn't die. So what the Toyagumon allows you to do is that it allows you to reboot and it becomes a blocker on your opponent's turn essentially. Very important. That's the primarily main focus for it anyways. And then for the last rookie, play 2 Chikuri. People might not like the Chikuri, but essentially you need this because sometimes your matchups into Crossheart and other Digicross decks are reliant on cards like this, and if it is a problem you can just Digivolve on top of it mainly with like Skullknightmons, Cavalier mode, etc. So it has problems, but you get around it quite easily, so you only play 2 of it. And those are the rookies. Now we get on to the champions. Start off with 2 Mighty Axe mode, 4 Mighty Axe mode, what am I talking about? Probably the second best one currently. It essentially allows you to look at the top 3 cards, then you get to add one of them with Knight, Deadly Axe, or I believe Nene. And if you Digicross the 2, you get to also delete a 4 cost or less. This essentially is your out to Solomons in that kind of matchup, or the Chikuris, or whatever helps production or stops production. But it's also an insane search, and it's also a Twilight, so it becomes a blocker. So it essentially basically acts as a card that does 3 things well. It is itself as a blocker at 5k, which is pretty good. Itself can also remove cards, and it can also search cards and fuel the discard. So yeah, you play 4 of this, it's a no-brainer. Then we play the 4 Cavalier mode. People might be like, why do you play 4 Cavalier mode? The reason why is because sometimes you'll have a Skullknightmon on the field and going into Cavalier mode just as 2 swings for free essentially. Also double up as a blocker. The main reason though is because it doubles itself as a Deadly Axe and a Skull Knight, as you can see there, which means this card becomes a lot more versatile when compared to just the card that says Skull Knight or Deadly Axe. So we play 4 of this, then we will play 4 of the Skull Knight, this card is insane. Most people care about it because of the security attack +1, but the effect that allows you to if you have a Deadly Xmon in the field, which you do because the old classes them, you get to basically digivolve onto a Dark Knight for free, which essentially allows you to get so much advantage and go into your Dark Knight X antibodies a lot more easier. So yeah, you play it at 4, it's a no-brainer. And then finishing off, we play 2 Deadly Xmon. We play this because we need the name, but the on-play is obviously also good as well. It's a bit dated, but it's still pretty good. The inheritable I do not like. Like I said at the start, you actually want your stuff to die, essentially. So, but sometimes you don't if you're swinging it for game. So like if you have 2 security and you only have 2 Digimon out, swing for the 2 and then hope for the game. Sometimes like in that situation it's good, but in reality, like when these are in play, they're in play, and you only need 2 of them. So that's all the level 4s. Now let's get on to the boring part. For DarkKnightmon BT10, this card is insane. It allows you to digivolve on play, then if you digicross, get to delete a 5 cost or less. So essentially you can play this for 4, digivolve and delete a guy for 5. Insane. You also get to return one to hand and then play one from its sources when it dies. Oh, again, insane, like, don't know, too much advantage in this deck for me. And you also get, and it's not suspended, unlike the BT7 one. So you're able to play off stuff as well pretty easily, which is insane. Also, if you play this from your Dark Knight X antibody from Trash, you also get to play the Digicross requirements as well, which means you're blocking with your X anti, then you're going to go into this guy to digivolve and delete a guy. So you're controlling, you're blocking, you're doing a lot for this deck. So this is the best card in the deck by far. And following up is the BT7 Dark Knight. It essentially does the same thing, but it doesn't have a reduction cost, which is the reason why we don't play it as much. This card's really good to go into when you're building a stack, because basically essentially just builds you into, or lets you play the other cards again for free. And unlike the BT10 one, you can play both materials from this. They are suspended, but it means you can get the effects from your Mighty Axe, your Deadly Axe to get some more searches. So we play it at 3, and that is the champion line. Then we go into the level 6s. For Dark Knight X antibody, I mean, this card does everything. The unsuspend thing doesn't matter as much, but the get one from Trash and delete a tamer is very important. And also the fact that you can play a Dark Knight from this, it essentially allows you to get up to 3 or 4 blockers on your opponent's turn. This card alone if it dies. So we play it at 4. It is arguably one of the best, for sure. And then to finish it off, we play 2 Death-X. This card is still warranted in this format, and playing a free guy is pretty good to say the least. So we play 2 of it, and it comes up pretty well against Crossheart and other matchups, so definitely needed. Then we get onto Tamers. Go to Analog Youth. People don't understand how powerful this card is in this deck. You get to trash 2 essentially and add 1, which means you have fuel for your Immortal Ruler. You also have fuel for your Dark Knights, your BT7 Dark Knights. You also have, it just does a lot, and if anything was to die, because everything's going to die in this deck, you gain a memory and hatch an egg. Like, it's insane. So we play 2 of that, then we play 4 of the Nene. Again, Nene is insane, allows you to search on play, but it also allows you to get blocker for all your Knightmon, your guys with Twilight or DarkKnightmons in name. If this gets deleted, you also gain 2 memory, which actually sometimes comes up a little bit. Sometimes, as they don't have a target, like Black WarGrey will delete this and you gain memory. It's kind of insane in that. So we take it. It basically stuck, so we like that. We then play 2 Izzy I think I wish I saw this more this tournament, quite frankly. Getting the 3 memory is actually quite important for this deck, so maybe bump this up to 3. Don't know what you remove, but that's one of the weaknesses that I found with this deck. There's so many times during the tournament that I was passed with 1 and I couldn't do anything. And that's all the tamers. Let's get on to the final things, which are the options. 2 Immortal Ruler. You could probably bump this up to 3. Honestly, this card is insane. Allows you to trash 3 cards, and then you get to play a Dark Knight, and if it's got Digicost requirements, you can also play that from trash. So essentially, this becomes the toolbox for your discard, which is very important. Becomes way more control-y if you play this card. You don't really want to mill this card, unfortunately, but it is a card that has Twilight, so you can actually add it off certain cards in the deck. So you actually play it too, and then finishing the deck off for Pride Memory Boost. Like 20 of the cards, 20 plus cards this deck are for cost lower, so it's a no-brainer. It's the best fucking Pride or better memory boost they've actually made, probably, other than reinforcing. So you definitely play 4 of it for sure. Anyways, that's been my deck profile and my kind of like overview of the event. Overall, I think Living Armories did a really good job with the event. It ran smoothly, the events didn't really go far into time, had a good break as well in between, and top cut was pretty quick, so felt pretty good about that altogether. But let me know what you guys think about the deck. If I've missed anything, do you think I should add some more stuff? I feel like this build is probably the best it's going to be, except for like maybe 1 or 2 changes. So please do let me know in the comments down below. If you do like this deck profile, please like, favourite, and obviously share. It does really help a lot. And thank you guys for watching.